The legal industry as a whole does not like change slash risk too much. So I can imagine a legal AI tool is met with a fair amount of skepticism. Is that your experience so far, Rhys?
So it's really interesting. And I think before this kind of advent of generative AI, which really kicked off probably towards the beginning of last year, I think legal technology was seen as a fairly unexciting technology, by sort of the investment landscape and the powers that be. And law firms were still kind of incrementally adding technology, going from having almost very little technology, kind of keep the lights on tech, to slowly starting to add more innovative solutions, new features, build up in-house capabilities as well, so their own software dev teams. And actually, to their credit, I think almost across all the industries, law firms have actually really been taking the lead in terms of being willing to experiment with generative AI, being willing to actually be quite open about their experiences, what they're seeing, what they're not seeing. And so there's been sort of a bit of a kind of sea change in the preconceptions around law firms and in-house teams and how they use this tech before generative AI to them really becoming at the forefront. You see teams like Microsoft and OpenAI now openly talking about the law firms that they're working with. We know law firm customers who have been brought into early trials of Copilot in order to give feedback. And so they actually are starting to be seen as front runners. They've got to be very careful about what tools, what technologies they use on client-sensitive information, and they need to get their clients' consent. So even if law firms have moved ahead of other industries, they do need those industries to catch up because those industries are their clients, right? And they need to be equally comfortable with the cloud and using these kind of services over their sensitive information. So British Telecoms recently revised their law firm panel. So I think they cut about 4 or 5 law firms from the panel. And what they said was the law firm on the current panel that can show the highest level of adoption and use of AI solutions and how they work with BT will automatically be secured a place on the next panel. It can't just be, we'll buy some tech, we'll do a bit of press, and then all is good. You've got to be serious about implementing it. You've got to be serious about giving lawyers freedom and time to experiment, to help identify use cases, to move from some of the mindset that is needed in lawyers to you always have to be right, you always have to be perfect because of the risks associated with that, with understanding that software, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to learn as you go, you're going to iterate, you're going to give feedback, and building that into that kind of mentality is important. And the firms that are doing that right and the firms that are doing that well are very quickly accelerating past their peers, essentially. The first thing is, what is your prediction on what the future is going to entail? Once you've reached that point, right, then you can work back and say, okay, in order for us to be there, our lawyers need to be very comfortable using technology. Our lawyers, we need to have a culture in the firm that, you can take time out of just doing client work to focus on doing horizon scanning of what's in the market, right? Attending conferences, attending events, talking to peers, being parts of communities, all of that kind of stuff, changing the culture. And then saying, are we at 0%? Are we at 25%? Are we at 50%? Are we at 75%? Are we at 100%? In terms of where we are in this journey.
I know I wrote a blog post recently on advancing the tech into teams, and I think there's a big piece around the younger generation that are coming in to legal, and this technology, everybody's very used to using it in their day-to-day life, so it's almost like a no-brainer, or it's a given that you should be using those kind of tools within the workplace as well. So is that something you see with like more junior members of the staff kind of really advocating for the tech to come in, because it's going to make their life easier, probably number one, isn't it?
That's the thing. And to be honest, they're probably going to use it anyway, right? So
if
the firm doesn't adopt it, they're probably going to go on ChatGPT and Gemini and just draft an email. Yeah. So the risk is that these young people are a lot more digitally native than myself or anyone within an organization. They use these tools in their day-to-day work, probably use them at university, and just test out certain things. So the big risk is that they're going to use it, right? Now, you don't actually have access to those products within a controlled environment where you have put in place those guardrails. You very quickly start running that risk of they're just going to go elsewhere and use it and potentially jeopardize, data security and all of that kind of stuff. You have to be willing, I think, to bring in those junior people. You have to be willing to listen to them, which can sometimes, sort of friction or rub against the wrong way of how law firms are typically done, quite top-down structures of people saying, well, that's how I was trained, so that's how you're going to be trained. There has to be an understanding of, senior lawyers can offer a lot of experience and a ton of learning around being a lawyer, being a good lawyer, and all of that kind of stuff. But there can be reverse learning on using this technology, how easy it is.